in Vanderbilt. I'm Sam Malik.
And I'm Carly Vaughn.
And it is March 15th. We have a very full show this morning. Yesterday I sat down with two of the VSG presidential campaign tickets. So let's jump right in and take a look at those interviews. I'm here with MacArthur Gill and William Schreiber, who are running for president and executive vice president of Vanderbilt Student Government. Welcome to the show. Let's get right into it. First off, can you two tell me a little bit about why you're running?
Well, the first time I came to Vanderbilt, I was 8 years old, and I came and watched a football game with my dad, my friend's dad, and two of my best friends. And you know, I remember walking around campus saying, like, I love this place. And then I got accepted, got to come here. I've loved Vanderbilt ever since I've been, loved every moment of it. And so that really got me interested in student government, got me interested in the idea that maybe I could do something for the school. And then, so I joined student government, and I'm the engineering center of the school. Ran last year as a sophomore, and I really liked it. And it came in with a lot of ideas and passion and everything. And I felt like some of that, I felt like student government could do more. I felt like some of the things that we've accomplished in student government, some of the things that I really came in and wanted to do, I didn't really get the opportunity to do. So that's why I want to run. I want to allow people to do what they want.
And I guess my answer is a little more direct. MacArthur, it took quite a lot of convincing to get me to run with him because I knew how challenging of a task that this would be to get elected and then achieve our goals. But I really care deeply about how divided our campus is as a university. And I think that ever since being here, I've noticed that there's different parts of campus that don't really communicate at all. I think one of the biggest reasons is our student government is so young and it's not yet positioned itself in a way that can bring all those people together and to really unify the campus and to build more school spirit and a more unifying feeling around Vanderbilt.
Now, you both have a variety of involvements on campus. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
I'm on the academic calendar committee. I am also in Kappa Alpha fraternity, and
the engineering senator.
I'm the engineering senator.
I am actually the president of Phi Delta Theta, so very involved in Greek life, and have also had the pleasure of starting a charity concert, Nights of Sun, then Back Alley Jam, and then have served off and on in VSG throughout the years. I was one of the co-founding chairmen of Vanderbilt's Vandy Ventures, and was also chairman of the Security Council on the Senate Committee, and got to sit on and was chairman for a little while of the Strategic Planning Committee, which rewrote the entire Constitution to Vanderbilt student government.
Right. So can you tell me a little bit more about your experience within student government, MacArthur?
I've loved my time in student government. Some of the things I found it to be somewhat limiting, and like I was starting to say earlier, I came in with a lot of passion, came in with a lot of ideas, a lot of things I really wanted to pursue and I was excited about. And I found myself working on things that were handed down to me. And at first, I was okay, I can work on that and continue to pursue the things I'm interested in. And as I asked more and more to, pursue the things that I really cared about, I found that I was limited to only working on the things that were passed down to me. And that was one of the most frustrating things I've found with student government is sort of the top-down aspect that the agenda is set and the people under the executives are, delegated tasks to the point where they aren't allowed to pursue what they really care about.
Okay. And you two are involved in an election where all three tickets have varying levels of experience within student government. How do you feel that your experience sets you above the others?
I would say that our experience sets us above the others because I would differentiate between experience and qualified. I would say that, experience, yes, that's the number of years you've been involved with something. That's, an important aspect. But I feel that we have the experience, and as he's worked on the Strategic Planning Committee, we really know the inside, workings of VSG, and I think that that's all the experience you really need. And what it takes beyond that is it takes a qualified candidate, and that's someone who is willing to actually listen, who's willing to actively go out to the different organizations and understand what they need, and in turn use the resources that they have to pursue those goals.
I would even take it a step farther and say that we're the most qualified ticket in the sense that we don't view VSG as an insular organization. Because we've spent so much time outside of VSG as well as inside, that we understand frustrations that other organizations have with VSG, And because that hasn't been our sole focus at Vanderbilt thus far, we kind of, I think, have the best grasp of what it's going to take VSG to the next level and really allow ourselves to improve this campus.
So you feel that your involvement in things outside of VSG makes you more qualified than people with more experience within VSG, such as our current executive vice president?
Yes.
Speaking of your VSG experience, earlier this year there was a resolution put forward by one of your other opponents, Kenny Tan, called for more transparency within VSG. MacArthur, you were the only senator to vote against that resolution. I know you talked a little bit about that Tuesday night at the debate, but could you tell us a little bit more about why you voted against it, and what does that say about how transparent your administration would be?
I want to get this point across, that when I voted against it, I'm not voting against transparency. I was voting against the act of, putting transparency on a bill, saying this makes us transparent because within 24 hours are going to publish this. And I didn't see that as transparency. I see transparency as a mindset. It's something that you have to have within you, and you have to actively be seeking, the ideas of others. And in doing so, you'll be telling them what you're doing. You'll be doing things for them. And I think that's what a transparent government is. You can't define it on a bill. You can't define it on a resolution. And that's why I voted against the bill.
So you think that legislation has no part in that?
I mean, legislation can take a part in that, but I think that putting rigid guidelines on times when certain reports have to be in and then claiming that we are now a transparent organization, I don't see that as, a feasible way to create a transparent organization.
So what would you two do to make sure that your administration was transparent?
One of the biggest ideas we've come up with is we want to actively go out and meet the different organizations, sit in on their meetings, go speak with them. The way I've seen it so far in VSG is, we take the head of different organizations, we bring them into VSG, we take them out of their element, put them into ours, and then we ask them questions. They give us a speech, we ask them questions. That's not a good way to get a sense of what an organization needs. And so what we proposed is, once a month, twice a month, going out to the different organizations, sitting in on their meetings, being the ones that stand up in front of them, asking them what they want. They would then tell us what they want, and the next time we come back in, we better have done it, or otherwise we're going to be in trouble.
Okay, and you talk about building your platform onto the more specifics of your platform. You have a lot of we believe statements, and one of those is that you believe in building a platform around a vision for Vanderbilt. What is your vision for Vanderbilt?
Well, I think we hit on this earlier, is that our vision for Vanderbilt is a more unified campus where people come to Vanderbilt student government if they need help, and we assist them in doing so, and we assist them in getting people to their events. We assist them in marketing what's going on campus. We assist them in accomplishing the goals that they need to see done. And right now, I think that's where Vanderbilt student government is falling short. But on this, I think something MacArthur and I have been wanting to address is, student government is not like national politics where there's two sides to a platform. Obviously, all the candidates want to see HD TV in every room. All the candidates want to see greater academic transparency. All the candidates want to see improved housing, improved dining options. But the reason our platform is so powerful is that we say how we're going to accomplish those things and why we want to accomplish those things. And that's what sets us apart from our opponents, because we have a different leadership style and a different way of doing things to accomplish that platform that everybody wants to see done at Vanderbilt.
And just reading your platform, it reads very differently than the other platforms because you talk about we believe rather than specifics. And Tuesday night at the debate, you talked about making VSG a more bottom-up organization. And then also in your platform, you talk about wanting to redistribute some of the powers of the executive board back to the Senate. So doesn't this, in a way, weaken the office of president?
Yes, I believe. And I don't like to use the word weaken, but I think it shifts the power. I don't think the president should have quite as much power as the president has. And I think that that's something that I don't know how the other candidates really feel about that, but I can tell you that that's something that I strongly believe, is that right now the executive board and the president, they have too much power. And I think that shifting some of that back to the Senate, you'll really regain a sense of people within the Senate who care and who feel like they have a purpose in what they're doing. And that's one of the biggest things for us is, I don't think that the president is the almighty VSG power. I believe that the president is there for the Senate to help get in touch with the different administrators that are needed to accomplish the task of this.
And I actually think this is a very important point, that the other candidates' platforms, both of our opponents, they all address simply initiatives. And those initiatives would have to be handed down from the executive branch to their cabinet or even other elected officials in the Senate. But it doesn't at all address how they're going to interface with this entirely new legislative body that we'll have in the fall. We've never had it before. It's a one-chamber, unicameral legislature that we want to see have more power than the current legislature. And the way our opponents' platforms are set up is that they're just going to ignore it like it's always been ignored. And that's something MacArthur and I do not want to do.
So you think that with the changes to VSG, the old sort of campaigning based on platforms with specific promises is ineffective?
I think that, yes, I think that it's fairly ineffective. And just in general, I think that coming out with a platform of 50, 30 things, you're never going to complete that many things. And I think it becomes an arbitrary choice what you choose to pursue and what you don't. And I think it's unfair to the students to do that.
And moving on to another area of your platform, you mentioned protecting Vanderbilt's Greek tradition. You two are both obviously very active members of Greek life on campus. Do you feel that the tradition of Greek life is at risk? And if so, what about it is at risk, and from where is this threat coming?
Well, I've had the privilege of sitting in on IFC meetings and the like this year, and I think that what's clear is it's exciting for Greek life that it's growing at Vanderbilt. Like, we're bringing on a new fraternity this year and for the next 3 years. We're bringing on new sororities, Zeta this year, other sororities in the future. And so the administration is not trying to get rid of Greek life. In fact, they're trying to build it. But what we need to realize is that the current Greek life as it stands needs to meet somewhere halfway in between where we are and where the administration wants us to be an effective part of this campus that is truly a positive part of Vanderbilt.
And as both members of active fraternities, you mentioned bridging the divide between Greek and non-Greek organizations. How, as members of fraternities, would you ensure that you're bridging this divide?
I think that we actually we are very well suited to bridge that divide, both being in fraternities, both being active members. I think that one of the things we could really do is start promoting the different events, maybe connecting Greek organizations with other organizations, teaming them up for events, and actually getting more Greek involvement in outside events. And I think that once the Greek members meet a lot more non-Greek members, the bridge will begin to build itself.
Do you feel that as both members of fraternities, you are you are able to represent the interests of independents as well as the interests of Greeks?
I would say so. I mean, one of my best friends is an independent. He is on the mock trial team. I think that we have a lot of different perspectives, not that narrow-minded fraternity mindset that a lot of people probably believe that we have. I think that we have, we've both been involved in different organizations, and I think that we've gotten a wide perspective that will really help us in bridging that gap.
You mentioned the bridge building itself. So would you take a more hands-off approach to this, or would you actively try to promote programming that puts Greeks and non-Greeks together?
I think it's important to promote the events that the different Greek and non-Greek organizations have. I see VSG, I see the Vanderbilt Programming Board as the main means for programming, yet VSG does a lot of programming. I believe that in order to really get the word out and everything, it's up to VSG to take an active role in promoting these different events that are going on campus.
What I think we have a vision for is, instead of just building more programming, because this campus is already over-programmed. Like, there's events every night. Great organizations are putting on great events. VSG doesn't need to participate in that. What we need to do is help get people out to the Multicultural Leadership Council's Infusion event on March 31st, or get people out to Greek Life's events and their philanthropies that are all happening this spring. If we can bridge the gap between the two communities and publicize events in each camp, we can start to see cross-fertilization of people and ideas across campus.
And speaking of bridging divides, you mentioned also in your platform voicing the concerns of religious groups and the LGBTQI community. Recently, we've seen that those two groups have seemingly been on the opposite sides of many issues, and are many would consider themselves incompatible, viewpoints with that of the other side. So how would you advocate for two different sides of an issue?
Well, I think that's exactly what needs to be done, is you need to advocate both sides of the issue. Student government in issues that involve the entire campus, issues of such great importance, shouldn't be taking a side, shouldn't be taking and, isolating part of the campus. I think that that's something that VSG really needs to do, and I think that's something that really didn't happen in our recent events. VSG didn't come out and listen to the students and then gather all their ideas, go to the administration and say, here's what our students are saying. And I think that that's something that needs to happen in the future.
But is it really advocacy if it's for two opposing viewpoints?
It's advocacy for the students.
So what is the role of VSG? What does VSG do when they have listened to both sides?
Well, one thing that could possibly happen, and this is actually something back to this divided campus that we have. One of the reasons I decided to run with MacArthur is because I was very disappointed with the religious issue recently in the all-comers policy, that VSG did not even address it at all. Like, there was no conversation within VSG about, within the legislature or whatever, about this religious issue. And I think that VSG should have taken an active role and had a town hall for students for these two opposing sides that don't agree with each other, these religious organizations and these LGBTQI communities, to come and speak with each other about the issues that matter most to them. And I think that we would have discovered that at the heart of it was liberty for everyone. Religious organizations wanted the freedom to practice their religion, and LGBTQI communities wanted the freedom to show who they were, to the rest of campus. And if we could just have mature conversations with those two groups, I think that would go a long way in kind of showing the voice of the students to the administration and showing that we can solve problems.
And while we're on the issue of the non-discrimination policy, do you think that the all-comers policy as it is currently written is a good policy?
We touched on this at the debate last night, and personally, I don't think it matters if I think it's a good idea. I don't think William thinks it matters if he thinks it's a good idea. We as student government members, and we as potentially the president, vice president of the school, we're a voice of the students, and that's all we are. And it doesn't matter personally how I feel about issues, because it is up to me to be the voice of all 6,500 students at this school.
But is it possible to create policy in student government and check your own opinions at the door? Do you think that that's really a reasonable possibility?
Well, I think the glory of that is that the executive branch should not be in the legislative process. Like, we shouldn't be voting on these bills. Now, this is exactly our point, that if we empowered the legislature that will be new in the fall to go out and reach out to organizations and draft great legislation, and if there was a healthy debate on the topic, and there was a genuine, true concern with the all-comers policy, or there was a genuine, true endorsement of the all-comers policy, then the legislature could vote on it, and then MacArthur, given his agreement or disagreement, could sign that legislation. But again, all of that has to be bottom up from the students, and that starts with empowering the Senate.
But in a lot of ways, the president is the face of the school, and I know that there are a lot of people on both sides of this issue who feel very strongly. Don't you feel that you owe it to them to let them know where you stand on the issue?
We have actually taken a stance, and I think that's what is tough to realize here, is that our stance is that we will listen to you. And if you are passionate about something, we are going to listen to you. We're going to express your concerns to the administration and to those people that it matters. And regardless of my personal beliefs, isolating a section of campus is a bad idea in any sense. And so that's something we're going to strive not to do. And in order to do that, we must listen to all sides.
Now, in your platform, you say that all student organizations deserve a seat at the table. Would this include organizations such as the religious groups, which have been found in noncompliance with the all-comers policy?
I think absolutely, because those organizations made mistakes in the recent past. That's very clear, and some of the things they did have hurt a lot of people on campus, including myself. But they've done so many other great things in their history at Vanderbilt. To say that one mistake from one organization nullifies their goodness or their reasons for existence on campus, I think, is irrational. And they deserve a seat at the table to make sure that this all-comers policy, that we move forward in a positive way, and that it's not taken too far against them. They deserve a voice just as much as all the other communities on campus deserve a voice.
So it sounds like you are not necessarily supporting the policy in its current implementation. Is that correct?
I don't know where you got that from.
I'm not really sure.
Just saying that you feel like they deserve a voice at the table. Do these organizations deserve full organization status equal to those organizations that are in compliance?
I think they deserve a right to be granted organizational status again.
Okay.
The administration has ruled and said this is the all-comers policy. In order for them to be a student organization, they have to comply with those rules as they stand right now. If those compliance rules are so difficult that they just, for whatever reason, can't be a student organization again, I don't know what circumstances those would be. They deserve a voice to say why that is, and at least deserve a platform or an attempt to say what they truly have an issue with or how maybe we can alter the policy in the future. But from my understanding on campus is that those organizations, most will be in compliance moving forward.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. We are almost out of time here, so we'll leave it at that. But one last question. You say that you grew up on a catfish farm, MacArthur. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like?
It was an interesting experience. Grew up most of my life on the catfish farm, and regardless of whether, it's a 24/7 job, and if it's 4 in the morning and the oxygen levels are low on the catfish ponds and you have to go out, my grandfather always thought it was funny to teach me the lessons of hard work and send me out at 4 in the morning to check the oxygen levels and fix the aerator that's broken, and it was an experience. I think it trained me well for hard work, and I think that it's definitely a positive aspect of my life.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that was a rather lengthy interview, and we have another rather lengthy interview coming up right now. So let's take a look. I'm here with Kenny Tan and David Moore, who are running for President and Executive Vice President of Vanderbilt Student Government. Welcome to the show. Let's jump right in. First of all, can you guys tell me a little bit about why you are running?
Sure. So I came to Vanderbilt as a person dedicated to creating, I wanted to create my student organization the minute I stepped foot on campus. I created Young Americans for Liberty, which I started up and now has close to 300 members. And I really feel that the connections between the student body are really important, and VSG facilitates those connections very well. And it's a great opportunity to improve to close the gap between the student body and VSG. If I'm in office, I would like to promote a lot more accountability and transparency and open dialogue about important campus issues through VSG to do that.
And David?
On to me. Well, all right. Coming in, I came into Vanderbilt as a transfer student from a school in Ohio called Ohio Wesleyan University. And there I served in my freshman year as third in power on our executive board, so I was kind of right underneath the vice president. So making all those decisions as a freshman, I really learned really quickly how to lead a student government very efficiently. And it became sort of a passion of mine, actually. I went from not being involved in any sort of student government in my life to jumping right in there. And after a heated election, it became a really big part of my life. So I'd like to regain the amount that it was in my life, I suppose, here at Vanderbilt. You see, when you go to university, I'm sure everybody that goes here knows this, but when you go to university, it sort of becomes part of you. And in that way, I want to give back part of me. That makes sense. Thank you.
And can you tell me a little bit about your involvement in Vanderbilt student government?
Mm-hmm. I've served in VSG for the past year as the area representative for Alumni Lawn. And right now, I'm also a member of the ACT Fee Service Subcommittee.
All right. When I was at Ohio Wesleyan last year, I emailed actually Adam right after he won his election. I became interested in Vanderbilt after I got accepted, or more interested. And I looked online and found Adam was the president. I said, oh, well, I should get to know that guy, figure out what Vanderbilt student government's like. So I got a hold of Adam and via Facebook and email, and he told me how good of a place Vanderbilt was. So that got me thinking, if they have a good student government and it's a great place to be, then maybe it's something I'd like to go to. So I ended up here, and I found out that pretty much at the beginning of the year, the only thing that I could get myself on as would be an area representative. So I am now the area representative for Towers, coming from Towers too. and my roommate's actually the Towers 2 president.
And between the two of you, with your 2 years combined experience, you have the least experience of the other tickets. Do you think that would impede your ability to lead Vanderbilt student government?
No, I don't think so, because during the past year I've gotten to know pretty much everyone in VSG, and I've been able to make a lot of friends in VSG. I think we can do a lot of work together to improve Vanderbilt in the future.
There's a lot different. There's a big difference between experience and what you know and your abilities, I would say. And I'm not going to talk down their abilities by any means. But I actually started on at Ohio Wesleyan beginning at the second week of my entrance to that school. I was able to take up a position very comparable to our representative or senator power, actually, that we have now as a freshman there. So it's more, although I would say our combined experience now is actually 3 years total. But I would not say that experience has anything to do with leadership ability. There's probably guys sitting out there that have never done a day of leadership in their life. They could be president of the United States of America just fine. And other guys that have been president of the United States of America that probably shouldn't have been president of the United States of America, if that makes sense. So thank you.
Right. And now, David, specifically to you, this is your first year at Vanderbilt.
Yes.
Do you feel like you are qualified, having spent less time here than the other candidates, to take the second most important office in student government?
Absolutely not. Length of time at a place really has nothing to do with leadership ability. Again, when you're put into a position, you really are, if you're able to handle it, then you quickly take up the roles, abilities. You figure out how to do it, you're in your way. Like sort of if a person is put up to the CEO position of a company, they understand how the company works because they're briefed on it, and it becomes integrated into who they are. So that sort of thing.
Now, Kenny, your leadership of Young Americans for Liberty makes you, I would say, the most outspokenly political candidate on the campaign trail right now. How would you represent the interest of students who disagree with you politically?
Well, I am definitely open to hearing students' opinions, and I have been able to reach out to a large variety of political organizations on campus. I'm familiar with what the Occupy Vanderbilt group is now doing on campus. I've been receptive to the opinions of other groups like College Democrats, College Republicans, and at the same time, the presence of my student organization adds a lot more diversity to the opinion, to political culture on campus.
And your VSG history has taken on some issues that some would say are more political, particularly with the birth control issue that you raised earlier this year. Would you push your own political views on the government as president?
No, not necessarily. I would like to use VSG to to facilitate more open dialogue about the very important issues on campus. And I think that in particular with the Plan B resolution that I proposed, first of all, it was just a survey. I wanted VSG to do a survey of what the students thought about Plan B. And that simply by introducing that resolution, there was a very long debate over the merits of Plan B and the merits of even surveying students about it. So I feel like introducing those ideas into VSG is very important, and what we get from the debate is also very valuable.
And while we're on the subject of your history and involvement in VSG, earlier this year you moved to have a vote of no confidence in President Adam Meyer. Can you explain why you made the decision to bring that to the table?
Mm-hmm. I felt that after the violation of the VSG budget statutes that occurred, there needed to be a symbol that VSG was working toward more accountability and holding its leaders accountable. And I felt that having a vote of no confidence, what that would have done is simply started an investigation into what had happened. And I feel that the student body deserved an official investigation into what happened to find out what went wrong and what we can do in the future to make sure that the budget is proposed and the budget is provided to the public within a reasonable time period. And that's what I was able to accomplish through the Accountability and Transparency Omnibus that I proposed and passed successfully in VSG, which make sure that the VSG minutes and the VSG voting records are published within 24 hours after VSG sessions, and also requires that the budget be made public to the Vanderbilt media.
Now, how would you work to ensure that your administration was both accountable and transparent?
Well, definitely, I think my record shows that I've pushed toward more accountability and more transparency, and there's been a lot of great work in VSG since then to reach out to the student body by making sure that the VSG blog has the resolutions that are going to be voted on in the next session made available before that session actually occurs. And there's a lot of work that can be done to reach out to student organizations individually and inform them about what VSG is doing in general and what its goals are.
And back on the vote of no confidence for a moment, you moved to have a vote of no confidence in Adam Meyer. Was this also a vote of no confidence, or did you lack confidence in the rest of the executive committee, including the executive vice president, Mary Claire Maynard?
No. What I think the term "the vote of no confidence" isn't necessarily an accurate term to describe what happened, because the vote of no confidence, had it passed, would have simply started an investigation. It wouldn't necessarily have signified that we're not confident in Adam Meyer, because I felt Adam Meyer was a well-qualified candidate for the position.
And now on to Tuesday night's debates for a moment. On Tuesday night, you were the only candidate who took a stand on the school's non-discrimination policy, saying that you supported the religious groups who felt that they were being discriminated against. And as president, would you actively work to change this policy?
I would definitely work with the administration to address any policy concerns that students have. One of the things that I've proposed is a student rights committee that would basically allow students to have an official voice to the administration through VSG. And that's something I would definitely work on if I was elected president, to make sure that students' voices on these important policy issues are heard.
And onto the specifics of your platform, you say that you want to reduce the gap between the student body and VSG. How do you define that gap, and who is responsible for it?
Well, I think it's something that has just developed over time, that there's a certain demographic on campus that has sort of been in charge of VSG for a very long time, and there are minority groups on campus that don't feel that VSG represents them. And I'd like to add more diversity, more opinions to VSG.
David, what are your thoughts on the gap between the students and Vanderbilt student government?
Oh, well, it's definitely not something that's not seen at other universities. Having just come from another, but I've talked to several presidents, and I have friends that go to several schools. And really, when you ask somebody how they feel about their student government, the answer is always something sort of negative, or I don't feel like they do something, unless they know what's going on the inside, which they usually don't, or they usually don't care to find out. They usually have a very negative feeling about that. And that's sort of a micro-representation of the macro system, which is the United States government. But I feel that the gap is definitely there, and it's not easily remediable, but it is fixable. Opening up to the students, showing them what's going on, Kenny's proposed new committee, all of that can go into bringing the students closer to the student government, because the student government is supposed to represent the students and what they want. But the students, if they don't feel represented by the student government, things need to change. That's that.
Now, another particular of your platform is that you say you want to add a new cell tower to campus. On Tuesday night, Mary Claire stated that a cell tower was already underway and was due to be completed soon. Where does your platform fit into that?
Oh, well, I think it most definitely fits into that, because I've talked with Vanderbilt ITS, and they've told me that they've been having ongoing talks with the major cellular carriers like AT&T and Verizon, and they're working on making sure on installing a cell tower on campus. And basically what my role as student body president would be is to make sure that those discussions continue to take place and make sure that student input is involved in that discussion.
Now, according to the information that Mary Claire, as a VSG insider, provided, this is underway and this is in fact happening. So are you promising something that is already going to happen, regardless of whether or not you get elected?
No, not exactly, because I feel like there's always more opportunities to add more cellular towers on campus. If there's just this one instance of a cellular tower being located in a particular area on campus, there could be other areas on campus where there could be a need for more cellular coverage in those areas.
And you discuss health and wellness as well in your platform. You mentioned binge drinking as a serious health issue on campus. What do you see as the main cause of binge drinking on campus?
Well, I think that there's definitely a cultural impact. I think the general culture towards binge drinking is something that's developed over time and it's not necessarily had a very good effect. I've talked to various administrators about addressing the issue, because a lot of violence that goes on campus is alcohol related, and to reduce the violence on campus, we can definitely address the culture regarding alcohol. And there there are programs that we could create in coordination with the administration, a program similar to the Green Dots program that would address the culture on campus.
So are you discussing something similar to the alcohol education that first years must do?
No, not exactly, because the alcohol education is sort of impersonal and something that can be easily done online. Whereas the program that I'm thinking of is something that would be more one-on-one, not necessarily one-on-one, but within a group in person, and talking about what you can do to sort of intervene if you see your friend or someone you know just taking too many drinks, and how to respond to that and how to talk to them, and any techniques that you could use to get them off it.
Now another, you mentioned culture change. Another area in which you say on your platform that you would like to change culture is restroom culture. What do you see as the current problem with restroom culture,
Yes,
and how would you change it as president?
Well, the reason why I put that on my platform is because it's actually a problem where I'm living, and I think it's a problem pretty much everywhere on campus. My area coordinator actually sent out an email to the entire area about this issue, where certain students are just not keeping the bathrooms very clean. And students, if they just picked up after themselves and made sure to leave the bathroom in a good condition, it would reduce the amount of burden on our residential staff, and at the same time create a much more welcoming environment for students.
But specifically, what would you do to change this culture? How would you make sure that this culture actually gets changed?
Well, just one example would be possibly putting up flyers on, I guess, the backs of restroom stalls, just a reminder, hey, you should flush after you're done, because that would be nice.
Right. I agree that it would be nice. Moving back to the debate for a moment, it was clear on Tuesday night, at least at the Commons Center, there was more audible enthusiasm in the room for your opponents. And also looking at the number of likes that all three campaigns have received on Facebook pages, the other candidates seem to have more support. Do you think that there's an enthusiasm deficit when compared with the other campaigns?
No, I don't think there is a deficit. There's a lot of support that we've been getting that hasn't been reflected necessarily in the turnouts of the debate, because I feel the debate didn't have as much publicity as I would have hoped. And at the same time, there's a lot of underground support for our campaign that will show up eventually when the election occurs.
Now you two are both sophomores this year. The other presidential candidates are juniors, rising seniors, which means that you'll be here for 2 more years. Do you plan to, regardless of whether or not you win or lose, do you plan to run again next year?
I plan to continue my involvement in VSG. I've enjoyed my time in VSG thus far, serving as an area representative. And if I were to not succeed in this election, I would definitely consider other opportunities to continue in VSG, for example, as a residential or an academic senator.
Now we're almost out of time. One last question to get you out of here on. On your Facebook page, it says, David, that you are from small town Ohio and grew up riding horses. Kenny, you are from Brooklyn. Those are two very different environments to come from. What's it been like working together?
Well, I think we've definitely been able to work together. We've enjoyed the experience. There haven't necessarily been any problems caused by the difference in hometowns.
Culture, yeah. Well, really, I'm not saying that I was from a log cabin in the middle of the woods with no electricity. I actually grew up with the internet, believe it or not. So I'm pretty much as cultured or more cultured than most other people that I come to meet. So I find that I'm able to keep up with them on the same level. It's not like not being from a city makes you an inhuman wood monster. I'm actually a regular guy too, you know. Kenny and I, we get along just fine. Like I live in a city now, so it's the same concept, you know. So good thing.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on the show, and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck to all the candidates. Voting is happening right now and will continue on until noon tomorrow, with polls closing at noon and the results being announced shortly thereafter. Following the primary elections, the main elections will begin.
And outside, it is wonderful. It's been a great week this week. It's going to continue. There might be some thunderstorms later in the afternoon, but we've got a high of 78 and a low of 61 today, so go outside and enjoy that weather.
Thank you for joining us. Have a good day, Vanderbilt.